What's up, guys? Welcome to those College Football Guys podcast. Our first episode of 2026. A couple years ago, we had been doing these videos and podcasts. We got a little busy, but now 2026, we're hopefully going to try to be more active, especially on YouTube and also on socials like TikTok and Instagram. But today's video, we're going to really talk about a lot of what happened in the playoff. We'll maybe hit a little bit on some of the news, some of the transfer stuff, especially. Mostly, we're going to get into the Miami and Indiana game, looking forward to the matchup on Monday night. Christian, do you want to start that off real quick?
Yeah, uh, it's no secret that I'm a hater of IU football, being a Purdue grad, but being around all these IU fans and when it gets shoved down your throat all day, every day, and especially the last season and this season, I mean, it kind of grinds at you a little bit. But unfortunately, I have become a believer. You can't. I mean, the 15-0 is undeniable at this point. Uh, if it wasn't at any other point this season, right? So I think, I mean, I was looking at, and I was going to tell you this off camera, but you told me to hold on to it. I think IU is just going to be. I think IU is just going to be the more physical team. Like I don't, in my mind, I just don't see it going any other way. You know what I mean? But in looking at like stats and specifically looking at stats, I mean, when you look at the running offense, the rushing offense for IU, it's strong. It's very good, and
Right.
it's very much what they want to do always. I mean, considering that Fernando Mendoza's stats aren't, world is not it's not, he's not a world beater. He's got what 2,500 yards or 27 or maybe 3,000 yards, whatever it is. He's got a lot of touchdowns on him now, especially having that last game, five passing touchdowns, but 177 passing yards. You know, it's what they want to do first is run the ball, and that's obviously been their identity all season. Now we're at the last stop, national championship. I was looking at the stats, and I do believe if I saw correctly, IU has two 1,000 yard rushers. I'm rounding up for the second running back two. He's got like 960 yards, whatever. I'm gonna round that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think their rushing offense is gonna be a lot more a lot stronger against this matchup is Miami. Not to say that Miami's defensive line is no slouch. Obviously, they're phenomenal. But when you have two backs that are toting the rock 1,000 yards each, you can hit them with either one. I mean, you can get fresh legs in and out all the time.
I do think that the matchup with the defensive line for Miami, which has Ruben Bain and then the other defensive lineman, Akeem,
Keem Mesidor.
right? I do think that they are probably going to be game wreckers for this game. Well, most of the season they've been game wreckers, but I do think Ruben Bain, especially, he can make a big difference. One thing that I've noticed is um, Indiana does love to run the ball. They're pretty much if they can't run the ball, then their offense is almost just non-existent. Obviously, we haven't seen that this season just because obviously they haven't had to go deep into their bag offensively, right? Because they've always been either ahead for a lot of these matchups. I mean, I don't even think all season they've had to come back from a huge deficit.
I do know that their game against Penn State, there was that it wasn't like a huge deficit, but it was definitely a comeback time. And, they got the ball back on 1 minute, I think 1.5 minutes left. Made that miraculous drive down, and then made that phenomenal catch, passing catch.
I
More
think
credit to the receiver than to
you bring up the Penn State game, but that Penn State game, what it kind of shows is that Penn State, when they did stop the run, it made it more difficult for Indiana to run the ball. Indiana was a little more, they had to challenge themselves to be more creative to get the ball down the field, right? I think that's how it kind of worked itself out at the end of the game with that crazy, drive to, get that crazy touchdown at the, back of the end zone for, Indiana. And I don't know. I like the matchup. I think this will be a really interesting matchup. It'll be fun, especially on the defensive line, offensive lines for both teams. I think offensively, for Miami, I think their offensive line is huge. Defensive line for Indiana is a little bit undersized, but they've always been like that this whole season. They've been more of an athletic defense, not really a stout, maybe gonna overpower you kind of defense. But definitely a team that brings pressure all over the field. They're rotating, coverages. So it's a very confusing defense, especially for first time quarterbacks. You did bring up, or I'm not sure if this was on camera or off camera, but how uh, Indiana doesn't have, they don't get to the quarterback as often. They don't get many sacks.
Yeah,
And I think that's going to be an issue, especially for a quarterback like, um, what's his name? Miami's quarterback. If he has all day to throw, he can make some defenses pay.
it's true. It's true. Carson Beck. I mean, I give you credit with that because if I use not getting to the quarterback, then he must have a lot of time in the pocket, right? Or something else is going on. So, they're just not an effective defensive line. But I do think there's two stats I want to bring up that I don't want to take over this current point that we're on, but I do feel like Carson Beck can definitely make you pay if you give him the time. He has the pedigree. He is a five-star, recruit way back in the day. So he did go play for Georgia. So he has the skill set. He might not have. There's been very questionable I mean, decisions, that he's made throughout the season because he has 11 interceptions. So, I mean, if he has a clean pocket, I'm sure he can make any throw anywhere, where anytime. So it just feels like there's been many questionable plays that he's made. So we can. I mean, if he's got a clean pocket, he should be good for him. We'll see what happens.
Right. And I also think these teams are almost identical. They're a run first team. Like if you look at both stats for quarterbacks, like for both the quarterbacks, they're not gaudy stats. They're just game managers, but it's not like a game manager when I think of like in a bad term of out like Jake Fromm, right? He was good, but he wasn't like he didn't have the cannon to go down the field. He was just dink and dunk medium throws, right? But these two dudes can throw down the field if they need to, but their offense is not predicated on them going down the field or stretching the field. It's mainly about getting first downs and wearing down defenses over time.
Sure, sure. Sure, I'll agree with that. Especially, I mean, I think it's important. I mean, especially for the Miami's offensive game plan, they need to get Malachi Tony the ball. The
Yeah.
issue is everybody knows that. So if you take away Malachi Tony, who's the next in line? Now, I do believe, if I saw the stats again correctly, I think the next it's Malachi Tony at 1,000 receiving yards, and the next one below him is 600 receiving yards, 700 receiving yards. So there's a to me a considerable drop off and especially in terms of like the receptions per receiver. I think Malachi Tony, if I'm looking at this right, 99 receptions through 15 games, mind you, through 15 or yeah, 15 games because this will be game 16. 99 receptions, and then your drop off is 300, 400 yards, and almost half of the receptions, 56 receptions for the next receiver in line. So it just feels like obviously they're going to take away the goal should be to take away Malachi Tony. And after that, there could be a struggle offensively for Miami to get the ball down the field if they need to. Honestly, we already talked about this. Their go-to is to run the ball. So it could work out good for them if Indiana defensive line isn't very productive, which looking at stats, it is so.
I'm trying right now to look at the rushing yard stats for teams, and what's surprising is or this is more so rushing yards individually, um, but Miami, Mark Fletcher Jr. That dude he's ranked 27th. He has 1,080 yards. I didn't know. I didn't
But
even know it.
he does it all. The next drop off is like 400 yards, 500 yards
Yeah.
rushing.
So I mean, and I think both of them are freshmen, aren't they? Isn't he? No, he's a junior. He's a junior.
I just feel like it's. I mean, Fletcher is so much more productive, as considering he's averaging 5.4 yards a carry. His backup Brown, who has 119 carries himself, 469 yards, 3.9 yards per carry. It's not. I'm not gonna say he's not productive. I'm just saying like they have their key guys like Malachi Tony, Fletcher, and what's left behind them? Is there depth there? So
Yeah.
that's like if I was a Miami fan, that'd be my concern. What's the depth like? But I mean, it might be all for naught because you made it to the national championship game. You game planned well. You know what you're doing.
Right.
You know how to get there. You know how to win. So it's all about finishing, I suppose, and staying fresh. Definitely about staying fresh if you don't have the depth.
Right. And also, I mean, this is the last game, so it's like they're gonna probably, any kind of trick plays that they have in the bag, they're gonna probably show them out.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
They're
both of
out.
these teams
Yeah.
are gonna probably let everything out just because this is the last it, right? They're gonna try to win a national title. Especially what's crazy for Indiana, this will be their first national title, and for Miami, they're trying to get their first in the 2 decades since 2020, 2001, my bad, 2002 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I do think when you look at offensively for Indiana, Elijah Surratt, the receiver, I think he's going to be easily a top 15 pick. If you need a receiver, he feels like that just because anything that gets thrown his way, he catches. He on film, on tape, he looks like he could be a good, number one receiver at the next level. But what I do like about him is that literally everything thrown his way, he has a good chance of catching it. And he has like I think a touchdown almost every game. I mean, he is, I think, their workhorse for Indiana's offense. At least on the passing game, I think their running back's really good too. They also have insane talent, across the board. They've just done a really good job building that team through the transfer portal, which is, I think,
Yeah.
uh,
Uh,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say they just have adults. They just have grown men. They just
Yeah,
22, 30, 23, 24-year-old men who are playing against if I mean Miami is also, had their fair share of their transfers. So if they have a lot of their young like Malachi Tony, who should be a senior this season in high
high
school,
school.
it just feels like you're gonna be the more physical team when you have these grown men going against 18, 19, 20 year olds. I do agree with you that Elijah Surratt is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I like his story very much in terms of starting at like a Division two or whatever
Right.
NAIA school, whatever it is, then going to James Madison, then coming with Kurt Cincinnati over to IU, and he doing phenomenal. I do think his counterpart Omar Cooper, they both share almost identical stats. They both have
Yeah.
800, 900 yards of receiving. The next drop off from them two is Becker, who also he does well in in his receptions as well, 614 yards by himself. So they're very to me. That's why it feels like it's such like a one-sided battle. I guess in my mind,
Right.
I feel like IU's already has it locked up that they're such a much more well-rounded team and they're more physical.
I do think that they have the better receiving core. Obviously, they're deeper, obviously, at the receiver, which will make it a little bit more challenging for Miami's defense. I do think that if Miami can get pressure to Mendoza, I do think that those receivers kind of, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
they're not as huge as an impact on the game than say like a running back, which Indiana has a couple that are really good as well.
Yeah. I agree. As long as Miami's defensive line truly makes it hell for Fernando Mendoza, then even passing the ball might be it might be an issue. Running the ball, I mean, I do like I said, I do think IU has a very physical offensive line. I think everybody knows that, and I think they can run the ball very well against anybody. So I'm
What do you think
excited
the
to
game's
see.
going to look like?
I'm thinking, dude,
Do you think it's a blowout
I
or do you think it's close?
I think I don't want to say blowout because then I'm gonna egg on my face if it's that close. You know what I mean? But or I eat crow, whatever it is. But I'm thinking IU wins 10 plus, 10 plus.
Do you think it's
And
like a slow game, or do you think they kind of they just open it up? It starts like pouring.
I think it's slow for the first. I think like any other game. I think the first quarter is feeling yourself out, and and then it kind of it starts getting away from Miami by the middle of the second. Um, and here I want to harp on two stats that I was alluding to earlier. Is that number one is the turnover margin, and number two is the penalties per game, or just penalties overall. My IU is the number one turnover margin team, and that's through 15 games, mind you. So that's those stats are fluid because the season's not over. But the penalties, Miami is one of the worst teams, almost dead last in most penalties received on a team. I think those two factors alone are probably going what's going to decide the game. If you have an undisciplined team, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot. And
Yeah.
if IU, who is guaranteed at least one turnover a game, it's like I think the stats 1.40 turnovers per game. If you're guaranteed one turnover per game, that's enough to pull away to do that 10 plus points winning. So I think to me that's like lock and key. It's over. IU goes 16-0, and I already know they're going to talk about IU being does IU belong as one of the best teams to ever play college football? No, they're very good. This 2026, 2025 IU team, whatever you want to call it, you want to attach it to, is not going to be your best team ever to play college football. It's just not it. Everybody's going to have that receipt bias. You're always going to remember 2019 LSU, and I'm still going to die on that hill.
Yeah, that LSU team was legit. Obviously, they had so many first rounders, but also the schedule that they went through, the top 10 matchups that they had, or whatever
Yeah,
the case was, right? They're one of the better teams, especially when you talk hypothetically. Obviously, LSU, that LSU 2019 team, they went up against this IU team. I do think it'll be close, but I do think LSU would have the upper edge just because Joe Burrow was on a different level with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson,
yeah. Yeah, I honestly,
right?
honestly, I don't even think it would be close. I think LSU would smoke them. I just don't see it close. Just because going into the next championship game, I think I saw this stat. Maybe ESPN put it out, and it compared Fernando Mendoza to Joe Burrow. They're not even in the same stratosphere. By this point, by national championship game, Joe Burrow had 2,000 more passing yards, 20 more passing touchdowns. What are we talking about? It's just not close.
Yeah, it was different. Definitely a different season for them. I think this game will be pretty close. I don't think that'll be a blowout. I don't think Indiana's like. I do think they're good, but I do think Miami's a little bit better just because the two stars on the defensive line. If they can make some noise or make some some disruptive plays,
Yeah,
I think they could win this game and make a pretty good argument for being one of the better defenses at least this season, especially because of
yeah.
what they've done last year and then a couple of years ago. Obviously, the DC hire they've improved defensively from a year ago. I don't know. Here's my issue with Miami is I don't know if they have enough firepower to like say Indiana does go on a bit of a run, right? They go up two scores if it's whether it's just 10-0 or 10-3 or 13-3 or something like that. Can they come back from something like that where Indiana they once they get rolling they're hard to stop just because that defense they start humming, they start going after the quarterback. And I do think that if Carson Beck gets back to some of his old ways with ugly turnovers or bad decision making,
Decisions. Yeah.
it could definitely be ugly for Miami. But something about this team, I've always been kind of, I wouldn't say negative, but a little bit down on, Mario Cristobal. I haven't thought of him as a, elite coach just because he's always felt like whenever he's had a big game, he's always either lost or done something to kind of, lose it, right? And so I do think this is different, and I do think that their offensive line is probably the biggest component on why it's different. They're able to run the ball and move people. They're a big offensive line, and they're able to protect and give Carson Beck enough time. I think that's going to be the difference. I'm gonna go Miami in a close one. I think they win probably something like 27-20 or something, or 24-20 or something like that.
Are you locking that in? 24-20, 27-20?
I think it'll be something close like that. It'll be like a 7-3 game. I think the spread is like
Okay.
at what was the spread, like maybe 8 points or 7.5 points or something like that. So it's
Okay.
they're saying it's like a touchdown dog. This game will be either probably like a field goal. If it's like I feel like because of adrenaline, obviously the atmosphere, all the noise, all the especially this week with all the media that they're doing right leading up to the game. Um, a lot of young players, right? Obviously, not as many on. Obviously, I haven't really looked at Indiana's, depth chart and seen how many are, freshmen or underclassmen. But I do think that that makes a huge difference. This environment is different. Like it's not going to be like a regular game. Obviously, you're waiting all day to play,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it's you're antsy, you're anxious, you want to get going. This will be close, obviously, until I would say the third quarter. Then the third, second half, I think that's when teams they'll start to get their feet under themselves, start kind of getting things going. I wouldn't be surprised though if Indiana does get going early, just because Kurt Signetti, he's a fucking he's insane. That dude's a psycho,
Wizard, dude.
and so
He's a
he'll
wizard.
get those guys going. But I do think it'll be a close game. I'm pretty excited for it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm excited about it now. I mean, I think, like I said, I was being very reluctant against the IU train because of who I am, but I just love college football, so I'm gonna watch it obviously. So I'm excited to watch what the matchup looks like. I think I'm gonna lock in. I'm gonna say let's say 35-25, 35-22 or whatever, that 10-point spread margin for me.
That's not bad. And we're running out of time here, but that's it from us guys today. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Like I said, we'll be back with a couple more videos later on. But that's all for us today. We'll see you.
Yep.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Those College Football Guys podcast. If you are new to the channel, we have kind of taken a hiatus from obviously doing any YouTube videos or anything like that, but 2026, we're trying to obviously. Dang, dude. This right here.
Can you hear yourself?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's fucking hard.
Okay, hold